What if I told you there are fantasy shows so disturbing that viewers actually had to pause them halfway through? Forget the magic wands and happy endings. There is a deeply disturbing corner of fantasy television that most viewers never discover. Today, we are counting down the top 10 bone-chilling fantasy shows you'll wish you started sooner. And trust me, our number one pick is a psychological masterpiece so paralyzing you will struggle to finish it alone. Let's step into the nightmare. Kicking off our list at number 10 is Nosferatu.
I'm the only one with the power to stop him. And then I'm gonna burn Christmas Land to the ground.
Nothing ruins the joy of the holidays quite like taking the concept of Christmas and twisting it into a horrific, soul-sucking nightmare. Based on the novel by Joe Hill, this series introduces us to Charlie Manx, an immortal, supernatural predator, played terrifyingly well by Zachary Quinto. Manx stays young by feeding on the souls of children. Once he drains them, he traps what is left of them in a terrifying, frozen, magical realm of his own creation called Christmas Land. A place where every day is Christmas and unhappiness is against the law. The protagonist, Vic McQueen, discovers she has a supernatural ability to find lost things, putting her on a direct collision course with Manx. The visual of these hollowed-out, monstrous children with razor-sharp teeth is pure nightmare fuel. It is a wildly creative, deeply disturbing dark fantasy that will make you look at classic holiday tropes with absolute dread. At number 9, we have a show that took a colorful childhood cartoon and dragged it into a dark, visceral nightmare. Fate, the Winx Saga. If you're expecting the sparkly wings and upbeat music of the original series, prepare to be disturbed. This live-action reimagining is a gritty, blood-soaked descent into a world where magic is as dangerous as it is beautiful. The story follows Bloom, a girl who discovers her fire powers by accidentally burning down her own house, with her parents inside. She's sent to Althea, a magical boarding school, but this isn't Harry Potter. Beyond the school's barrier lies the Burned Ones, ancient humanoid monsters that don't just kill, they tear their victims apart with surgical brutality. The show excels at body horror, showing the charred, rotting remains of those unfortunate enough to cross these creatures. It's a world of backstabbing politics, ancient blood magic, and a constant, suffocating sense of dread. It transforms a fairy tale into a high-stakes horror story that will leave you looking over your shoulder. Taking the 8th spot is Mayfair Witches.
This is a trap.
This is how it starts. This is where he wants us.
If you are looking for thick, suffocating Southern Gothic atmosphere, this show delivers it in spades. Based on the legendary novels by Anne Rice, the story follows Rowan Fielding, a brilliant neurosurgeon who suddenly discovers she is the unlikely heir to a dynasty of incredibly powerful, deeply corrupted witches in New Orleans. But this isn't your typical story about learning to use magic. The Mayfair family has been haunted for centuries by a sinister, shape-shifting entity known as Lasher. He is bound to the women of this bloodline, and his presence is both seductive and utterly terrifying. The horror here is a slow burn. It relies on dark family secrets, psychological manipulation, and rituals that feel deeply unsettling. It's a claustrophobic, creeping nightmare that pulls you into the dark, murky waters of witchcraft and refuses to let you up for air. At number 7, we are heading to South Korea for Island. While Korean dramas are often known for their romances, this show proves they can deliver top-tier, hyper-violent dark fantasy. Set on the beautiful Jeju Island, the story reveals that the island is actually a seal holding back ancient, world-destroying evils known as lust demons. These demons possess humans, twisting their bodies into grotesque, monstrous forms that hunt for blood. The story follows an immortal demon hunter named Van, who was brutally raised and magically altered to fight them, and an arrogant heiress who happens to be the reincarnation of a powerful savior. The action is high-octane, but the horror elements are incredibly heavy. The visual effects of the demonic possessions, the exorcisms, and the sheer amount of blood and brutality make this an intense, pulse-pounding, and chilling watch from start to finish. Imagine a grimy, Victorian-era steampunk city where humans live alongside mythical creatures who have fled their war-torn homelands. Now, throw in a string of incredibly gruesome Jack the Ripper-style serial murders, and you have Carnival Row.
No one can stand in the way of what is coming. They, all humans,
Orlando Bloom plays Philo, a human detective investigating a series of horrifying killings, while Cara Delevingne plays Vignette, a Fey refugee trying to survive in a city that despises her kind. The fantasy elements are beautiful, but the horror in this show is relentlessly grim. The creature doing the killing, known as a Dark Asher, is a grotesque monster stitched together from different body parts and animated by dark, forbidden magic. The show dives deep into themes of racism and political corruption, but never shies away from the visceral, bloody reality of its murders. It is a gritty, incredibly dark world that feels constantly oppressive and dangerous. Number 5. AMC's Interview with the Vampire.
I don't want to kill people.
You're a vampire.
I could not save myself, but I could save her.
This is not a life! You took my life!
If you think you know this story from the 90s movie, you are not prepared for the absolute bloodbath of the television series. This adaptation leans all the way into the gothic, toxic, and deeply horrific reality of immortality, following Louis de Pointe-du-Lac as he recounts his decades-long, incredibly destructive relationship with his maker, Lestat de Lioncourt. The show is a masterclass in psychological dark fantasy. The series is gorgeous, but the violence is visceral and shocking. It strips away the romanticized veil of vampirism and shows it for what it is, an addiction driven by slaughter. The physical and emotional abuse these characters inflict on each other and on their child vampire creation, Claudia, is deeply uncomfortable to watch. It is bloody, it is brutal, and it perfectly captures the tragic, monstrous nature of living forever. Coming in at number 4, we have a series where the real-world monsters of the 1950s violently collide with flesh-eating cosmic nightmares. Lovecraft Country. Few shows have ever managed to blend real-world terror with supernatural horror as effectively as this one. The series takes the very real horrors of Jim Crow-era America and fuses them with ancient dark magic, eldritch monsters, and cosmic nightmares beyond human understanding. Following Atticus Freeman as he travels across the country in search of his missing father, the show constantly pits its characters against two different types of monsters: racist humans and literal flesh-eating abominations. The dark magic in this show is grotesque. From terrifying cult rituals to horrifying bodily transformations and massive multi-eyed shoggoths ripping people to shreds in the woods, the special effects are top-tier nightmare material. But what makes it truly chilling is the psychological weight. It is a brilliant, heavy, and unapologetically terrifying series that uses dark fantasy to tell a deeply haunting story. At number 3 is 30 Coins, a Spanish HBO production that is pure, unadulterated demonic terror.
Somewhere else.
The premise revolves around the 30 pieces of silver paid to Judas Iscariot for betraying Jesus Christ. These coins are now scattered across the globe, and they carry a dark, unimaginable supernatural power. The story takes place in a remote Spanish town where an exiled, tough-as-nails exorcist named Father Vergara is hiding one of these coins. What follows is a descent into absolute madness. We are talking about grotesque, demonic childbirths, mirrors that trap your soul, and massive Lovecraftian entities that defy human comprehension. The scale of the religious conspiracy and the horrifying visuals make this one of the most disturbing and intense dark fantasy shows ever put to film. Runner-up at number 2 is Netflix's The Sandman.
Tomorrow, the rebuilding will begin. New dreams, new nightmares, a new age.
While much of the show is a visually stunning, dreamlike fantasy following Morpheus, the King of Dreams, it earns its spot on this list for two very specific reasons. The first is a character named the Corinthian, a walking nightmare created by Morpheus, who escapes into the waking world to become a serial killer. He has rows of jagged teeth where his eyes should be, and his scenes are deeply unsettling. But the real reason this show is here is episode 5, titled 24/7. A man named John Dee takes a magical ruby into a 24-hour diner and uses its power to strip away the lies of everyone inside. Over the course of the episode, you watch ordinary people devolve into their most primal, horrific selves, culminating in a bloodbath of violence and psychological terror. It is widely considered one of the most disturbing hours in television history, making The Sandman a must-watch for dark fantasy fans. And at number 1, taking the crown for the absolute most bone-chilling dark fantasy series is the French masterpiece, Marianne. Emma Larsemann is a famous horror novelist who has made a fortune writing books about a terrifying witch named Marianne. But Emma has a secret. the stories aren't entirely fiction. She has been writing them to keep the witch, who has haunted her nightmares since childhood, trapped on the page. But when Emma stops writing, Marianne escapes into the real world and begins tormenting Emma's friends and family in her hometown. This show does not rely on cheap tricks. The horror is rooted in the terrifying performance of the old woman possessed by the witch. Her unsettling smiles, her unnatural movements, and the atmosphere of pure, suffocating dread are genuinely paralyzing. It blends dark fantasy lore with the kind of visceral, creeping horror that will make you double-check the locks on your doors. If you want to experience genuine terror, Marianne is the undisputed king of the genre. That is the list. Let us know down in the comments. Which one of these twisted nightmares are you brave enough to start tonight? And if there is a deeply disturbing dark fantasy that we left out, drop the name below. If you enjoyed the video and want more hidden gems that the algorithm won't recommend, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.